When I review President Fidel Castro's record, I'm just wondering if he's ready to acknowledge that he made a mistake. Now, he might argue that his communism could have worked and Cuba could have been pearl of the Caribbean except for Western and American blockade and sabotage and obstruction, etc. But is that unfair? First of all, the bastion of communism, the Soviet Union, collapsed. Again, they might want to argue that, well, if you go to the West, similar treatment to Cuba. Not really. I think that communism was another phase after fascism and Nazism. The enemy, the Antichrist, has been taking us through phases and hoping that each is going to be able to usher in the new world order and the one government rule. Notwithstanding, the UN has been also established by the same Antichrist, the secret society boys, and so on. But in itself, the Soviet Union had its own seeds of destruction. I recall I was living in Canada and I was saying, and Prime Minister was responding, I was saying that I don't understand why folks are afraid of the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union is going nowhere, and no threat of nuclear war and all that, it's not going to happen. The Prime Minister responded by saying, hey, you don't know the kind of worry we have every night studying what will happen and so on. Well, I was unfounded fear, and it was unnecessary. But the communism in itself had its own seed of destruction. In reading Animal Farm, you could see the whole idea of the satire, in which they promised everybody, look, we all be equal, we're going to share the fight together and everything else is going to be good. And when you retire, you're going to have this kind of wonderful life, you've served the Republic, etc. But deep down in the hearts of individuals, we like to distinguish ourselves. We have different abilities, and no point in asking a genius who invented all necessities to come and live in some mud hut with some fellow over there who's brain dead and just basically definitely subsisting on government handouts. But in the book Animal Farm, the conclusion was that, they were saying that eggs and milk was for sale. Nobody's to use it so that they could get revenue and product of the farm. But then the poor or the rulers begin to say, hey, our kids need to wear ribbons because ribbons was, I think, one of the things that also was banished because it was distinguishing status and all that kind of stuff. But then they began to say, you know what, we need eggs and milk to drink because we're ruling and we need to, it's probably proven that these foods help with intelligence and we need that in our kids and real yards. And Benjamin, who had been a donkey that worked hard, pulling the load and everything else, when he retired, they just sent him off to the slaughterhouse to take the hide to make shoes and the hook and so forth to make glue and go 9 yards. And so in itself, it had the mystery of destruction. And of course, it was Angel or Stalin or Lenin who said that the Soviet, the working class revolution, and the whole 9 yards. Furthermore, they said, either them or the Chinese said, look, you give us a child before 3 years old, and we're going to train him in communism, and you have a communist for life. And that also has proven to be bogus. Deep down in us, whether you support somebody or not, their basic needs of wanting to be free, religious freedom, freedom of movement, freedom of thought, those freedoms which America enshrined in its Constitution. But with Cuba then, so the Soviet Union collapsed, and Cuba was trying to tell us here that, man, we could survive. Well, if the bastion, with all your financial and all that collapsed, then it's obviously that you too would collapse if things go to the extreme. And the type of conditions that the Soviet Union and others were using to ferment revolution and so forth is what Cuba's condition today. And after maybe 50 years or so, people still ride in donkeys and they have old cars and all that. So he should have seen that Soviet Union would collapse, that this thing is not a real valid and reliable philosophy and political strategy, and that he's going to have opposition, and that the opposition will be so all-pervading that there's no opportunity for him to improve. Yeah, people say that the education, healthcare, and all that stuff, but bottom line is that they're living in abject poverty. You see the lampposts with wires hanging down, falling down, people living in the past. Recently, he's talking about liberalization, which probably is trying to placate the West here. But what will happen is that all these intellectuals are going to run out, the artisan, the people with talent are going to run out of the Castro with the mentally ill, and the jailbird, a reverse Mario Bros. So I think Castro, before he died, should come up and say, you know what, I had good intentions, and I thought that this thing could have worked, but it's basically impossible. And furthermore, he has gotten rich, and it seems as if he might have envisioned that he wants to live forever. He has these great plans that he would put Cuba into the first world, that he wanted to be a president for life. And communism is a vehicle for that. You see it in Grenada, where Maurice Bishop talking all that stuff, and then they don't want to hold elections. And there's nemesis, Dr. Walter Rodney, was saying, hey man, you need to have this election. But even when Rodney, if Rodney had been successful in thwarting Bonham's assassination attempts and become president, he too would want to play around with the elections, because deep down in our hearts, we think that we're good and we think that our ideas are the best. And especially if we had special education in which we went to London or Harvard or wherever, and we grew up in a way in which we thought that our ideas were the best. We had no competition, no fighting in the street, and no serious discussion. It's just like, wow, that's a good idea. So I think that Castro needs to apologize to the Cubans and let them understand that even if he had been to the West, good, it might not have necessarily made life a lot better. He wouldn't have been first world anyway, because it seems as if hitherto, if you're not first world, you're basically, or the whole man was European deal, get nowhere. Whether it's survive and subsist in the third world and want to meet and so forth. But perhaps if he hadn't gone socialist, he might have had a different ball game. It might be different. Jamaica and even Guyana is not, as what was the word, as in the throes of separation as that exists in Cuba. So I will declare a failure if you don't want communism a failure. China, of course, is using this to help to control its citizens and its population and to effect its capitalist, true capitalism, real philosophy of capitalism. So communism is a failure. Cuba needs to revert way to accept the Western values. Eschew that they have failed and communism is a waste of time. And perhaps things will improve and the Cubans will feel a little bit better.